On January 10th of 2020, at 21 months, we brought Lily in for her space surgery. About 10 days later, we noticed redness on her lower abdomen, which then quickly developed into necrosis. She also started to develop holes in her skin. We were told they were opening up to let the infection out. The infection actually became so severe that she developed sepsis, and without the skilled emergency veterinary care she received, we would have lost her. The holes ended up spreading and the infection blew her whole side open, traveling up her side, into her armpit and across her chest area. It eventually made its way to both front limbs and paws. We attempted to have it drained multiple times, but the infection just wouldn't come out. We did Epsom salt soaks, used raw honey, and a ton of donated medical supplies to care for her open wounds. Our vet believed Lily developed vasculitis, limiting, if not completely stopping, the blood flow to her paws. On March 10th, she was finally stable enough for surgery. We were hoping to spare at least one front paw by removal of an infected toe, but once in surgery, it was determined both paws needed to be amputated. She survived the surgery with no complications, and the stitching work was unreal. It took over 150 stitches and an hour and a half to close her up. During surgery, casts of Lily's front limbs were taken and brought to AJ at V2 Innovations to make temporary prostheses. When we went for our appointment, AJ worked diligently into the night, tweaking and modifying her devices to accommodate for post-surgery swelling. AJ and his wife Yana are also owners of a tripod named Jack, and their insight and support has been invaluable. We even got a peek at one of Jack's previous devices. Watching her walk for the first time after amputation was so emotional. Even with all the trauma she had just been through, she was still trying so hard. To see her like that was both uplifting and heartbreaking at the same time. We continued to encourage her to walk once at home, but it was so challenging for her and quite discouraging at times for us. We were seriously questioning if we did the right thing for her. We relied a lot on the guidance of the professionals during this period, trying to keep the same amount of faith they had. We had some small progress, but ultimately she just wasn't ready and her skin still needed to heal. So we wrapped them up and waited. In the meantime, we started a GoFundMe and used the donations to buy her a large dog stroller. We wanted to be able to get her out of the house and provide her with some much needed mental stimulation. We even got her brother Remington to help with pulling. She was 90 pounds and the stroller was 40 pounds, so it was a lot to push. Eventually, Lily was able to be resocialized and go on a few group walks in her buggy. It was exactly what she needed. Slowly, our girl was getting better in terms of both healing and temperament. She was so much more tolerant and loving with Remington. She was also showing signs her feisty self was still there. I'm so grateful for the bond these two share. It's truly remarkable how well Remington handled himself around her during this whole process. You can just tell that he cares for her so much. Finally, her skin began really healing and we brought her in for an appointment where our vet recommended taking her to a sandy beach with the idea that it would be soft enough for her front limbs. So we did, and it was incredible. To see her playing and absolutely loving being in the water again gave us tears of joy. The next step was bringing her back to V2 Innovations to be casted for her final pair of prostheses. We had about a 2.5 week wait for her finals to be made, so we filled our time with more beach adventures. Her love for the water was so inspiring, and we would stay for hours. Her strength and stamina was incredible, and you could easily tell it's what had been missing. We even brought Remington out with us once. Then came the most uplifting day, the day Lily got her new boots. The lightness and fit of them was absolutely incredible. She took to them right away. We carried her into the offices that day and she strutted herself right out. Our first 2 stops were PetSmart and Wren's, where she was spoiled with toys, treats, a new collar, and of course, a weigh-in. That night was the first time in 9 months she could come when called for dinner. One small thing that really made me cry. The next day, we brought her to our neighborhood park, and it was so special. You could just tell how much she was enjoying herself. We took our time and just let her go at her own pace, exploring the field. It's a day I won't ever forget. One of the following times we visited the park, her little girlfriend, Ruby, was out in her backyard. Lily had such a bounce in her step to go see her, whining the whole way. Their reunion was ridiculously cute. Little by little, we worked on increasing her stamina and building her strength back. She could only go short distances and would take a lot of stops to rest, but that was perfectly okay with us. Then came the day we took both dogs to the park. It meant the world to have them out together again. It was like the Rotten Rotties were back in action. We started to visit pet-friendly stores in the city to get her used to being out in public again. It was great resocialization after essentially being on bed rest for 8 months. We also went out on our first family outing together, bringing the buggy for an extended walk. It was a light show in a tunnel and then a walk along the waterfront. I still can't believe she got up in that chair. Then there was the first time I brought Lily back out to my sisters. What a day. Lily and my sister shepherd Tessa were the best of friends prior to Lily's surgery, and Tessa nearly lost her ever-loving mind when she saw her. She really just couldn't stop wagging her tail and seemed to be in disbelief that it was actually Lily. It was so sweet. Once the shock wore off, I think Lily ended up really enjoying herself and fit right back in. She had a great old time when we left. She was chasing all the chickens and ducks that my nephew had accidentally let out of their coop. I think the visit really lifted her spirits because when she got home, she was after Remington like a fat kid on cake. We continued with the neighborhood park visits, and they mainly went okay, except for the time the meatheads ended up in the creek. Lily followed Remington into the shrubbery, and it was game over once she got sight of the water. Thank goodness AJ had the forethought to make Lily's boots and liners waterproof. Silly girl, nothing was fazing her. We had to get my husband to come pick us up at the park that day. Couldn't have her walking home in wet socks. Lily was reunited with her high school crush Bob Barker, and it went so well, I thought she might be ready to return to school. Prior to her amputation, training in a formal setting was a big part of our lives. Together we obtained her Canine Good Neighbor and temperament testing certification. We also took part in agility and rally obedience for fun. Even though we had been out of the class setting for over a year, we retested the waters with the Rally O class, and she did phenomenal. She also started learning the ropes for scent detection, and we both really enjoyed the class. It was awesome mental stimulation with low physical engagement for her. Really, it was just amazing to be working with her again. And true to her breed, she loved working. And even with all this new exercise, she still wasn't budging on the scale. But of course, she got a bag full of treats for graduating. About a month into wearing her prostheses, we had to bring Lily in to have her boots resoled, as she had worn down the tread. At the same time, AJ put a wedge on her right boot to help with some gait issues she was experiencing. Lily was, of course, just thrilled about all the extra attention. Fall came, and she increased the distance she could walk, and we were able to complete the small block in our neighborhood, which was just over 1 kilometer. When winter rolled around, we had expanded our neighborhood walk to 1.5 kilometers. It was really hilarious to see her interact with all the Christmas lawn decor. You could tell she was really getting accustomed to her new boots. She was starting to build up strength and crazy stamina. She was full on playing and running after Remington in the park and chasing after balls. Then the snow flew, and so did her progress. Because she has to work twice as hard to walk compared to other dogs, the colder weather really allowed her to push herself without overheating. Plus, she loves the snow. After searching everywhere for a solution, we were fortunate enough to have a recommendation from our favorite pet store manager for winter boots appropriate for Lily. They're made for deep snow, so they fit over her prostheses and keep her dry and warm. 2 very important things for partial amputees. And most importantly, lets her have the best time. Once the new year hit, Lily kept hitting milestone after milestone, walking just shy of 2 kilometers on a New Year's Day hike. Later in the week, she went to our local dog park and returned to her conservation area trails. She was now chasing squirrels rather than barking at them on TV. By the middle of January, she was up to 2.5 kilometers. And still really in love with our Canadian winters. Near the end of the month, we went on our first official off-leash hike. It was amazing to see her navigate the trails and really thoroughly enjoying herself. We did 2.6 kilometers in an hour that day. By the end of the month, she was pushing 2.7 kilometers on a regular basis, and her pace had picked up enough to walk with friends again. Most recently, her and Remington had their first off-leash adventure together. It was a long time coming. We did a whopping 3.3 kilometer trail in fresh snow in just under an hour. It melted my heart to share this moment with them. We never thought she'd be able to walk more than 20 minutes at a time, never mind being a trail dog. We're aware that most dogs in Lily's situation would not have had the same outcome, that they would have had to be put down. She was so worth fighting for, and we're just so fortunate to not have lost her. We're lucky to be her guardians and give her the best damn quality of life we can. Her recovery has been truly remarkable. She's an amazing dog, and we are so grateful.